Basketball, gimme the ball because I'm gonna dunk it! Basketball, gimme the ball because I'm gonna dunk it! Yeah! Basketball, gimme the ball because I'm gonna dunk it!
Well, we welcome you on into another special episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show, the NBA season preview and predictions episode. My name is Mitch Spinell alongside Mitchell Balla. Mitch, we are here. We got our basketball jerseys on. You have, I don't know which one that is specifically. Is that a special All-Star Game jersey? That's like a special throwback. I don't remember which year specifically. You'll tell me in a second. I got my Matthew Dellavedova 2015 era Cavs jersey on, and we are here to give our predictions and kind of talk about what we think is going to be upcoming in the 2022-23 NBA campaign.
It's crazy to think that the basketball season literally tips off tonight, Mitch. To your first point and question, this is an all-star jersey. I believe it's 97. This is an MJ jersey.
Right.
Recent addition to my jersey collection. I got it in the swap with something. So I figured, what better way to open up the 22-23 basketball season. I mean, as you see, my two teams are hanging up behind me with the Cavs and Kevin Love, and then always got to pull for the kid from Akron and LeBron James and the Lakers too.
Absolutely. And, we'll get to many predictions here. We'll also be going through over what we think the standings will be, playoff predictions, awards predictions. We also want to remind you guys that, of course, you can listen to the show, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, here on YouTube as well. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and BigTimeSportsOhio.com. And, of course, all of our social handles. So, Mitch, we're going into the season tonight, and this is one where I think for the first time in a while, maybe not a while, not even sure at this point, because last year was pretty interesting. The Eastern Conference feels extremely up for grabs. It's a year where I don't think we really know what to expect, especially with a lot of the stuff that transpired in the offseason. You have some teams with, guys missing or guys on new teams, some teams without even their coaching staff or their coaches for this year. And I'm looking at specifically the East, which is where we'll start off in our standings predictions. And it's kind of a toss-up compared to the juggernauts that I think you'll see, the usual suspects that you'll see in the West.
Oh, yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think there's question marks for almost every single team in the East. I think maybe there's one that you don't have to really question too much about. But Bitch, I think for so much for you and I growing up, we talked about, is the East weak when LeBron was here? And I don't know if the East was ever really weak. I think LeBron just owned the East. And now it's almost kind of flip-flopped because I feel like you can pick a handful of teams from the East to come out and represent the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals. Whereas the West, I think there's maybe 2-3 teams. But I even think that there might be one or two teams that are going to surprise people this year and NBA fans all around in the East that play very tough, maybe improve their record, by a significant margin. But they end up missing the playoffs. But I can't wait for the season to get started. And I can't wait to see who you have going to the NBA Finals. I know the listeners out there are excited as well.
Well, we'll get to that in just a bit. For now, I think we want to start off with our standings. And, I want to go from bottom to top because I want to get our contenders later on in the show. You kind of want to get the ones out of the way that you don't expect to contend. And I think we should start by going from numbers 15 to 11 in this case. And we'll start off in the East. My standings 11 through 15 in the East go like this. They go Magic, Wizards, Hornets, Pistons, and Pacers. Now, these are teams that are kind of either on the rebuild or really coming off of tough off seasons. I don't think you're going to get much from the Pistons or the Pacers. I don't even think the Hornets, even with LaMelo, are going to be that fantastic because their number 2 in Miles Bridges is coming off some off the court stuff right now that might cause him to miss significant time. So really, I'm not expecting much there. I don't know if you are. And then once you get over to 11 and 12, those are teams that, they kind of have their top guys, but at the same time, there's a lot of glaring gaps between both Washington and Orlando that I think will keep them out of the play-in.
Yeah, it seems like we have the same idea for some of these teams that we don't expect a lot out of this year. However, I do have one different team I know for sure. And starting with 11 to 15, for me, I have the Pistons at 11. I think the Pistons actually with Cade Cunningham and now rookie Jaden Ivey from Purdue, I think that's going to create a nice little tandem going for Detroit. I kind of like how Jaden Ivey plays. I liked him when he was at Purdue. I was hoping, even though it wasn't going to happen, there was some way Jaden Ivey was going to fall to the Cavs. Obviously, we know the Cavs made a big splash, which I'm sure we'll get to when we talk about the Cavs later in the show. I have the Pistons at 11, Magic at 12. I have the New York Knicks at 13. Why? Because I'm just a hater of the city of New York and New York sports teams in general. Remember, Mitch, they were supposed to go for Donovan Mitchell. That was their big guy in the offseason. They were going to get the hometown kid. They struck out yet again. I don't know if I buy the Knicks. I won't be shocked if they do get into that play-in realm in the Eastern Conference with Thibodeau there as head coach. I have the Pacers at 14 and I have the Wizards at 15. I think Bradley Beal is a good player. I've always been a minority thinking he's kind of overrated because he doesn't do a whole lot. He scores the ball. He's a terrific scorer. The Wizards don't ever do anything though. And I do think the East is kind of loaded this year. And I think that for the most part, you and I have 4 of the bottom 5 teams correct. I won't be shocked if, whether you think the Hornets are down there, or for me, I have the Knicks down there. A lot to be seen, but I think it's a safe bet knowing and saying that the Wizards, Pacers, Magic, and Pistons will not be in the playoffs this year.
Okay, so you have 5 teams, 4 of them we matched on because my number 10 is the first of the 4 would-be play-in seeds. My number 10 is the Knicks because I think that even though you didn't win the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes like you wanted to, you couldn't quite get the superstar. Jalen Brunson proved to be a very capable player in the Mavericks system last year, and getting him for that contract alongside Julius Randle, who I'll admit he's lasted longer in the NBA and has been more successful than I anticipated him to. But there's something there I think that could be willed into a play-in tournament berth. Now, it's probably not going to be result in much unless the Knicks can pull off some miracle victories. And for whatever you think of Tom Thibodeau, he's had winning teams before. Like, this is a guy who had great success in Chicago. And, I think this is a team that can maybe not surprise people, but they might just slip in there like, oh, the Knicks actually got some competitive games in this season. Now, my other play-in teams from 7 to 9 go like this: the Toronto Raptors, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls are going to be interesting because they have 2 guys, especially that I think can do some really good stuff. You have Zach LaVine in there, obviously, and I forgot his name in there. I apologize. Lonzo, obviously, Lonzo could do something interesting this season. You also got DeRozan in there, even though he's getting a little bit older. I decided to put the Bulls at 9 because I think that while they could explode and maybe even potentially keep pace with the Bucks and the Cavs for a while, then we could see something there, but I'm going to keep them at 9 for now. Keep it safe. My number 8 in Atlanta. I mean, I saw the team this past week over at the Fieldhouse, and they got Trae Young, they got John Collins. I really like what DeJounte Murray can bring to the club, and that could be a very good scoring team. It's just the other areas of the game that I think they have to really nail down to make what would be an extended playoff run. And then number 7 in the Raptors. Your 2 best guys are 2 of your leftover. I don't even want to say leftovers because that seems like an insult from your finals winning team in Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet. But I think that Nick Nurse has a very good coaching system down there. I think he has guys that can play hard for him. I think they work well together despite not having a real superstar. They proved capable last year. I think they were 5th in the East, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. And then, I could see them being around that same area if they don't bottom out somehow this year.
No, and just like we said with the bottom teams, I'm with you for 3 of the 4 teams. Obviously, I have the Bulls at 7 because I think the Bulls, like the Cavaliers last year, showed a lot of promise. They were hit by the injury bug, in the middle of the season, whether it was some of their big men, whether it was DeRozan, whether it was LaVine missing games, Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso. They showed a lot of potential there, and I do like what they have there. So I have them as my 7 seed. I have the Atlanta Hawks at 8. I do think that Trae Young and Murray in the backcourt is a very nice backcourt for the Hawks. And this East has a lot of great backcourts. It's going to be fun to see these backcourts go at it every single night. I do think, though, that with how the season ended and everything, and the Hawks beating the Cavs in the play-in tournament, to get that last seed in the playoffs, I think there's some teams that we saw last year that maybe aren't as good as we thought they were. And the Cavs, you got to look at it this way. The Cavs were a top 4 team for most of the year before you lose Mobley. Garland missed some games. Allen went down. So I think if the Cavs would have been healthy, Hawks would have been out. But Hawks are a very good team. I have an 8. Wouldn't be shocked if they're even in the top 6. At 9, I have the Toronto Raptors. Nick Nurse is a very, very good coach, I think, with Siakam, Van Vliet, Scotty Barnes, the rookie of the year, not my rookie of the year, but he did win rookie of the year in the NBA. He's there. And then 10, I have the Hornets. I do have the Hornets edging out other teams to get in and get that last spot in the play-in tournament. I agree. Bridges had a lot of off the court issues this offseason. LaMelo Ball is unlikely to play in their season opener. He might miss a week or two for the Hornets. But we've seen a lot of teams get off to slow starts. It's pretty typical in the NBA, pretty common, and they overcome it. I just think they have a lot of talent. I think Gordon Hayward's a good player that I'm starting to think is kind of going under the radar. He's a guy that you don't want to leave open because he will hurt you from deep. I think he has a lot left in the tank still. So I have the Hornets as my 10 seed. So it would be Bulls, Hawks, Raptors, and Hornets 7 through 10.
So that's your 7 through 10, and I'm keeping track of them now. Like really quickly, could you run through 11 through 14? I know Wizards was 15 for you. So you had
11 Pistons,
okay.
12 Magic, 13 Knicks, and 14 Pacers.
Pacers, got it. Wizards was the 14. So there we go. We're all caught up. Now, do you have a personal affinity for your predicted number 6 seed in the East, Mitch?
Not really, Mitch. I think the only one I'm just locked in with who I have number 1 overall in the East, because I truly think that who I have 2 through 7, I wouldn't be shocked if any of those teams rose to the 2 seed or fell below that 6 seed into the play-in tournament, because I think that's how loaded the East is. As you know, the NBA is where one player can literally win you games. We've seen it before with LeBron James. We've seen it before with all these other superstars in the NBA. And all these other teams in the East have a guy, if not 2 guys, if not 3 guys. I think the key to all these teams is who's going to stay healthy. We saw it one year with the Warriors where they just completely were not the Warriors because of injuries. We've seen it before, even with the Nets. We've seen it before with the Sixers. A little bit different type of turmoil and controversy in Boston this year that I think is going to affect them a little bit. But no, I'm not in love with who I have at 6 right now. I think they could be a 2 seed. I think they could be in a plane. What about you?
That whole I like that you went on that whole monologue there, because that was basically my trying to sneak in the fact that to see if we had the same number 6, and it looks like we don't, because I have the Cavs at number 6.
I do too. I think I have. Well,
wait a minute. You went on this whole thing. You led me down a path where I didn't think that you were going to have Cleveland at 6. I
think I have the Cavs between the 4 and 6 seed. I really do. I just think I'm going to shoot a little under.
Okay.
I truly said when we got Donovan Mitchell, I think we can be the 4 seed, because I think there's teams in the East, and we've seen it before. Obviously, I'm going to keep going back to having LeBron and the Cavs when he was here. Teams that don't try in the regular season. Now, this was before the play-in tournament, and I think having a top 6 seed matters that much now, because you don't want to be in that play-in tournament, because a lot can happen in one game, whether it's an injury, whether it's just somebody getting hot on the opposing team. My 4 through 6, Mitch, literally, I think can float either way.
Okay.
I was fighting between the Cavs, the Nets, and the Celtics between 4 and 6. The only reason I'm putting the Cavs there, and by the end of the show, or by the end of me talking through this segment, it's going to take some time for the Cavs.
Sure.
It's going to take some time to gel. I know they look good in some preseason action. There's other times they didn't, but Evan Mobley really didn't play in the preseason. You had some other guys. I think the Cavs are trying to figure out who is going to be the small forward. Is it Isaac Okoro? Is it Dean Wade? Is it Karis LeVert? I think JB Bickerstaff is toying with everything. If they're healthy, though, and it doesn't take a lot of time to gel, Mitch, then no, they're not the 6 seed. I think they're the 4 seed. I think that they're that loaded. You have 4 guys that can beat you night in, night out. And I'm already talking myself out of putting them at 6. So you see what I mean? Like, I know you asked if I have a personal affinity with them. Yes, I technically do, but I also am undecided. I'm going to see what you have to say before I give you my lockdown number 6.
Yeah. The whole thing was, I asked if you had an affinity. It just basically be like, are you a fan of the number 6 team in your rankings? Because I am a fan of the 6 seed and the Cavaliers, to where, look, this could easily be a 50+ win team. We saw it last year. The team won 44 wins, doubling up from the previous season. And I think the injury bug really caught them at the end of the season, allowing them to lose to Brooklyn and Atlanta, who had a lot of good talent on there. I think the talent now is there in Cleveland. You get Donovan Mitchell there, who can make a great backcourt with Garland. There are guys that are still blossoming. There's like Evan Mobley should not have been as good as he was last year as a rookie. And who knows where he could go if he keeps working at it. So as long as this team can remain as unselfish as they played last season, but as long as they can keep all the nonsense and the noise outside of the walls in Independence and the walls in Cleveland, this could be a really, really solid team, the best team we've had in the post LeBron era. And it could be for the long term, which is really exciting to think about. But I do want to remain conservative on this because there are still a lot of very talented teams in the East. And I think we might have a difference in our 4 through 6 besides the Cavs. And that is because at number 4, I have the Miami Heat. Now, the Heat nearly came within one game, or was one game from getting back to the finals last year, and it was against the Boston team that caught fire at the right time. So this year, I still have full trust in Jimmy Butler. He's going to get things done. Kyle Lowry can still play a point, but he's getting old, man. He's 36 now, going on 37, which is crazy to think about. And Tyler Herro just signed a huge extension, so there's that. But in the meantime, I'm comfortable with keeping them in the top 4. I wouldn't be surprised though if the Cavs maybe make a run there, they could jump a team like that. And then number 5, I have the Brooklyn Nets, and the reason I have it as number 5 is because even though it's not the exact middle, it's a good middle for me between 1 through 8. Brooklyn, we saw as an 8 seed last year, despite having 2 of the most notable players in the league. I think they finally have put the noise that we've seen beside. Who knows if there's going to be noise in the future. Katie's signed long-term. Kyrie will be back. He won't have to sit out as far as we know. And Ben Simmons, hopefully he's got his head on basketball now. The coaching thing is going to be interesting. We'll see if there's going to be a potential for some player and coach drama in the future. But I can't expect that sort of stuff. So I'm comfortable putting Brooklyn just ahead of Cleveland. Again, another team that if the Cavs get everything right, they could just immediately jump over.
1,000%. And the past 2 years, we've heard, Brooklyn's the favorite in the East. Brooklyn's second favorite in the East. And rightfully so. You have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, 2 transcendent talents. But Mitch, both wanted out. Both wanted out this offseason. Both talked about wanting to trade. KD's not happy there. They both signed off on Steve Nash. Now they don't like Steve Nash. You've heard some pretty weird things said between the 2 superstars of, they run the team pretty much, and it's not the general manager and head coach drawing up plays and adding players. The talent's there, though. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are good enough and able enough to make everybody else on that team around them better, that the Nets have the potential, Mitch, to be as good as the 2 seed. But because of all the turmoil we had in the offseason, that's why they're at 5 for me right now. And I think I'm going to keep them there. And whether I want to flip 4 and 6 with the Cavs and who I have at 4 right now, I think my 4 and 5 seeds, I'm going off last year and the talent they have rather than what I expect this year. But would it shock you if the Nets hit some turmoil again, which I think is going to happen with all the drama they like to have, and they wind back up in the play-in tournament? But would it shock you if they figure things out and they're the 2 seed in the East? Because the answer to both those is no for me. I think the Brooklyn Nets can finish anywhere in the East, and they're a giant question mark, which is crazy because, like I said, the past 2 years they've been one of the top 5 teams in odds in Vegas to win or get to the NBA Finals. I kind of take insult with who you have at number 4 because I have them higher in my predictions. Number 4, I have the Celtics. I think the Celtics are a very talented team. I think Jason Tatum showed you last year, especially in the run to the NBA Finals where they lost to Golden State. He is capable of making big plays, big shots at big time moments. Jaylen Brown, Al Horford. I mean, they have some pieces there. The whole coaching dynamic, though, Mitch, I think Ime Udoka, I think he was a big part for why the Celtics got as far as they did. And he's gone for the entire season. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens there to the players. What is this interim head coach going to do? Is he going to have the same approach and same scheme and everything as Udoka? We'll have to wait and see. But going back to having the Cavs at 6, I more so have them there because I like who I would have them playing in the first round with who I have 1 through 3. But I have the Celtics ahead of the Nets, and then I have the Nets at 5. But like I said, I think all that changes. 2 through 10, in my opinion. Well, really 2 through 8 could completely flip-flop.
See, it's funny. Yours can interchange in here, and I know that I have to keep myself flexible for injuries or suspensions or anything throughout the year. But I feel mine are pretty rigid at this point because number 3 for me is is Boston, because I think that even with, Doka out for the entire year, you're still going to get probably a very similar system on the same as he was part of his coaching staff. You also get an addition of Brogdon in there, who could be a very interesting kind of a point, or not point, but like a guard type. And I don't know. I think there was just something right about this team, the way they ran, especially defensively, that got them on that huge streak last year, got them all the way to the finals, and for a minute kept up with the Warriors. So I'm comfortable putting them at number 3. And as for my number 2, which I guess will expose my number 1, I have the Philadelphia 76ers, because I think they've officially moved past all the drama they had in the previous year or so. They've been past for a while. Joel Embiid is a top 5 MVP candidate as far as my mind goes. I think James Harden, if he has his head on straight, kind of like the guys in Brooklyn, can do some really good things for them. Tyrese Maxey is an interesting pickup for me. Also bringing in guys like Montrezl Harrell, and I don't know. I think this might be a very complete Sixers team, more so than some of the hyped up teams we saw in the previous few years. But I don't know. I'm very interested in seeing what Philadelphia can do. But that is a team also that I could see dropping as far as maybe 5th if things start to go sour for the year.
No doubt about it. You mentioned the Sixers, so I'll start there. I have them at 3. I think they're going to be a really, really good regular season team. I have my doubts about James Harden. I do think Joel Embiid is one of the top players in the NBA when he's healthy. Obviously, that's hurt him a lot in his career, but last year we saw a healthy Joel Embiid for most of the season. My biggest doubt with the 76ers, though, is their head coach, Mitch. It's Doc Rivers. I think a lot of people overlook Doc Rivers. They just consider him one of the all-time greats. And he's a very good coach. Okay, I'm sorry, not all-time greats, but one of the better coaches we've seen in our lifetime.
Of his era, I get that.
Of his era. I don't buy it. He's notable. A lot of people know him for these collapses his team has. I believe he has the most 3-1 leads blown in NBA history as a head coach. Right. I don't buy James Harden necessarily. Joel Embiid, I do. They did make one move this offseason that I really like, and it's Montrezl Harrell. They got another center that will get in your face. He will be there for the team. He's got that little nasty and crazy in him. And that's what you need on a championship contending team. What have the Warriors always had? They've always had Draymond Green. So crazy that he just punched his teammate during practice a week ago. Okay. I like that addition a lot. You mentioned they have Tyrese Maxey. Thibault, I think, is a very good player. Tobias Harris. I mean, they have the talent on that team, no doubt. Is Doc Rivers going to finally overcome his flaws as a head coach, and can they stay healthy? Because if they stay healthy, I have them at 3. At number 2, I have the Miami Heat. I think this team that you saw go to the NBA Finals in the bubble in 2020, I think 21 was an off and uncharacteristic year for them because of how soon that season started after the bubble. You saw the Lakers go through injuries that year. A lot of teams went through injuries the next year after the bubble, primarily the teams that played deep into the bubble. I like Spoelstra. I think he's proven that he is not just a coach that has succeeded because of having LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Bosh. I think it's shown that he is one of the top coaches in the NBA right now. Jimmy Butler. I love Jimmy Butler. I love him.
Doesn't.
The people that have to play against him. But you look at the Miami Heat, you have Butler. To your point, Lowry is getting up there in age. I don't know how much you can expect out of him. You still have Bam Adebayo, who I still think is very underrated in terms of players in the NBA. He's an all-star. He's one of the favorites for Defensive Player of the Year heading into the 22-23 season. Victor Oladipo is a wild card. Mitch, people forget he was a high lottery pick. He's still on that team. I think he's still capable of dropping a lot of points when necessary. And then Tyler Hero with the extension. You have Gabe Vincent, Max Strus. There's a lot of talent there, but I think their coaching, along with the talent, puts them to the number 2 seed, and that's why I have them there. And that's kind of why I have the Cavs at 6, because I think the Cavs played the Sixers extremely tough last year. That we played them often towards the end of the year when we either had A, Mobley out, or B, Jared Allen out. I think with the 2 big guys down low for the Cavs, if they stay healthy, they can handle Embiid. And that's why I kind of want to keep the Cavs in that 6th spot, but wouldn't surprise me if everything goes well for the Cavs if they did catapult all the way up to number 3. But I think you and I are the same page for who the best team in the Eastern Conference is.
Yeah, before that, I just want to make sure you have the Heat 2, Sixers 3, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm very confident in our number 1, and we'll say their full name on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. The Milwaukee Bucks.
Bucks.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm fairly confident that a team that kind of got bounced kind of early last year will be able to recoup. You obviously have Giannis, who is this generational player. He's unbelievable. I think that if you get Chris Middleton back healthy, that's a huge difference maker. The man can score, and this is a team that 2 years ago made this run to the finals, finally won it, and they're capable of doing it again. I don't feel like this is a team that was a one and done. This is one that I think can compete at least this year and into next year.
Mitch, I personally think they would have represented the Eastern Conference last year had Chris Middleton not gone down. When you go to a championship in any sport, you have to have a little bit of luck go your way, whether that's a call, whether that's an unsung hero coming off the bench and just, really willing you guys into the next round or next series. I don't think the Celtics beat a healthy Bucks team with Chris Middleton last year. I think the Bucks exposed a little bit of flaw in the Celtics, and I truly still think that if Middleton would have been healthy, we're talking about a Bucks Warriors finals in the 21-22 season. But if they're healthy, you have maybe not so much a big three as much as we want to call it, but you have a formidable three with Giannis, Jrue Holiday, and Chris Middleton. You look at their center, Brook Lopez. They have Serge Ibaka then to back him up. That's another guy that I think that you saw in Toronto the year they went to the finals and beat the Warriors. Somebody, capable of holding their own. They have that crazy and Bobby Portis. I mean, that's another guy that punched his own teammate in the face when he was with Chicago. They have the makeup. They have the coach there in Budenholzer. To me, I don't really know how anybody could really say the Bucks are not the number one team in the Eastern Conference.
It's going to be interesting. We're going to see where these teams are going to end up at the end of the year. And we can now go over to the West, where the 11 through 15, I think, might even be easier than that in the East, at least for myself. Because 11 through 15, I have the San Antonio Spurs, Utah Jazz, Houston Rockets, and Oklahoma City Thunder. These are just teams that don't really have a lot going for you. Oklahoma City especially is just stockpiling picks at this point.
Yeah.
And you lose what was his name? What is it? Holmgren for the season. It's a lost year, unfortunately, for them. And the Rockets, you did sign Kevin Porter to an extension, which was interesting recently. But the Jazz, obviously, you lose Mitchell. You get Colin Sexton and Lauri Markkanen and a bunch of draft picks. The Spurs, even their own coach said that he shouldn't be betted on to win the championship this year. So,
and they got rid of Murray too. I mean, people just. I think that's a move, Mitch, that has went completely under the radar. Is the fact that the Spurs unloaded Murray and sent him to Atlanta. But yeah, when your own coach is telling the media and press and fans don't bet on us to do much this year, or let alone go to the finals, that kind of is a red flag for your organization. I'm not sure how I would respond as a player on that team if my head coach is saying it before the season even tips. But yeah, you and I have the same teams in the bottom. I think just a few different spots. So 11 to 15. 11, call me crazy, and I've criticized them a lot. But I think that maybe, just maybe, with some of the players they have, they could make some noise, and it's the Sacramento Kings. I think the Kings are a team that everybody always just pushes away. And eventually, and if there are any Kings fans out there, eventually, they're going to do something. I just think that with their makeup, they have some good players. They obviously don't have that superstar, and I don't know if they will ever get that unless it's through the draft. I have the Kings 11, the Spurs 12, the Rockets 13, Jazz 14, and the Oklahoma City Thunder at 15. As everybody, I think, in the world knows, the Oklahoma City Thunder are actively tanking as they are trying to acquire pretty much every draft pick in every draft, it seems like.
Okay, so you had the Kings at 11. You had the, what was it? Rockets, the Spurs. And then the Jazz and the Rockets?
Spurs, Rockets, Jazz, Thunder.
Rockets, Jazz, Thunder. Okay, and this is interesting because I didn't think would end up having the same number 11, but we are. I have Sacramento at number 11, and I think they could come very close to finally getting some postseason action after having the longest active drought in professional sports.
Yeah,
at least the NBA. But,
they are number one now, to my knowledge. I believe it was the Mariners that had the longest drought. Obviously, they erased that in baseball this year. But, I mean, Mitch, just look at the roster. They have notable names. Yeah. Harrison Barnes, De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Horter from the formerly of the Hawks, Trey Lyles, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, who I think is a very good, a pretty good player with a lot of potential. And then DeMar Sabonis. I mean, they have names that, maybe not the casual NBA fan knows, but names that you just can't leave those guys open or they will hurt you. We've seen it before when they've been role players in other teams.
They are capable of winning quite a handful of games this year. I remember I think it was against the Cavs that they might have played. Was it last year? I think they played them close, might have beaten them late in the season. I'm not sure though. But those are 11 through 15. Those are the teams that will miss out in the postseason, according to us. As far as my play-in goes, number 10, I have the Portland Trailblazers, who have kind of made some moves this offseason. Still have Damian Lillard, still can will them to a potential play-in, but I don't think that's going to be much thereafter. I'm going with Portland. Number 9, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. I think Zion Williamson will have the season where he does establish himself as a serious star, maybe not a superstar, but at least a star. And number 8, I have the Lakers. As long as you got LeBron there, you got Anthony Davis on the courts somehow, you can still will yourself to a play-in spot. And number 7, I have those Minnesota Timberwolves, who I think will be better than they were even last season. And last season, they proved a lot of people, they surprised a lot of people by making that run into the playoffs.
We have the same 4 teams right there between 7 and 10, just 2 teams flipped. I took the Blazers over the Kings strictly because they have the better player on both sides, and Damian Lillard. And if he comes back, Mitch, we know what he's capable of. He was one on the all-time 75 greatest players in NBA history. He's a point guard, Dame Dolla, that can get hot from anywhere on the court. I personally love Damian Lillard. At 9, I actually have the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm not going to buy them until I see it. They go out and get Rudy Gobert. You'd have to think that it's going to be Karl Anthony Towns at the 4, Gobert at the 5. Anthony Edwards, I think, is going to be the reason this team either stays where I have them at 9 or goes to as high as you have them, if not get out of the play-in tournament. How much bigger of a step can he take? I think he's a very good player. I just want to see it first. At 8, I have the Los Angeles Lakers. I just kind of think the West is loaded and there's question marks there too. We know what LeBron's capable of.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis going to stay healthy? Is Russell Westbrook going to learn how to hit a jump shot? What's the dynamic with Pat Bev there now? And Ham, the new head coach, like, what are the Lakers, Mitch? Could they, if they stay healthy, they could be a top 5 team in the West, no doubt about it. But I don't know. What I've seen recently is I don't trust Anthony Davis. I don't. I don't. He's good to miss more games than he plays, and so that's why I have them at 8, and then at 7 I have the New Orleans Pelicans. I was flipping between them and another team to make the 6 and 7 seed, but I have been in the very vocal minority of I don't think Zion was as good as people thought he was going to be as the number 1 overall pick, but he's still a very, very, very talented player, potential all-star. I also just hate when people compare players coming out of college to the likes of LeBron James and Kevin Durant and these all-time greats that we're already seeing in the NBA present day. If he's healthy, you have Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, the Ohio boy, the Canton, Ohio boy, just grew up down the street. I really like what they have. I really do. But I have them as my 7 seed right now.
All right. So we have very similar ones. And I'm wondering if the top 6 is going to be similar too, because number 6 for me, I have the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, Memphis is a bit of an interesting one. They had that kind of postseason appearance last year where John Morant became a budding superstar. And there are still a lot of talented teams in the West, but in the meantime, Memphis could be a dangerous 6 seed, and I'll go through my 4s and 5s. Number 5, I have the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix Suns are a team that has been a serious contender the last 2 years, especially when they made that run to the finals. Then last year, you got completely shellacked in Game 7 of that playoff series with Dallas. And I think Phoenix now is kind of going through some considerable growing pains. Chris Paul is getting a little bit older. Devin Booker is in his 7th or 8th, 9th season in the league now, which is kind of amazing to think about. And then you got DeAndre Ayton, I guess you got back, but I don't know. I don't feel like this team is as fresh as they were back in the 2021 season. And then 4, I have the Los Angeles Clippers, who are arguably the sneakiest of the top 5 seeds in the West.
We're exactly the same. I'm with you on the Grizzlies. I kind of think they might have overachieved a little bit last year, but if they improved, I also wouldn't be shocked. I think the Grizzlies have that talent. They have a guy that came out of nowhere last year And if he vanished, I wouldn't be shocked. But if he took a step up and really played above what I ever thought he would be in Desmond Bain, I think they could be a very, very, scary team in the Western Conference. Steven Adams, Jared Jackson Jr. But yeah, Grizzlies at 6, Suns at 5. What does it say when your center that you took with the first overall pick signs a deal with the Pacers and then you match it at the last minute that you really don't play through? DeAndre Ayton is who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
Chris Paul, the hate is starting to get there. And I love Chris Paul. I still think he's one of the all-time great players of our generation. In terms of where he would rank on the all-time great point guards, that's a different discussion.
Sure.
And hot take, Mitch, I think Devin Booker is very overrated. I don't buy Devin Booker. I think the Suns had luck when they made it to the finals 2 years ago. As I alluded to, previously with some other teams. I just can't buy Devin Booker, especially when he wanted to talk all the talk last year and he couldn't back it up when they got absolutely steamrolled by the Mavericks. So I do have them at 5. And at 4, I have the Clippers. I do. And to your point, they're a sneaky team, Mitch. I also think they're a team that could be extremely overrated in the NBA, potentially one of the most overrated in the NBA. Is Kawhi going to be healthy? What is he going to look like after a torn ACL? What is Paul George going to be? And then I just don't know with them. I like Ty Lue. Okay, this is where I'm not sure where this is going to go with all the listeners out there, and I've got a lot of flack for it before. Is Ty Lue a really good basketball coach, or has Ty Lue been blessed with having some of the greatest players of the generation on his teams? Because yes, he was the head coach of the Cavs when they won the finals. If you would have given him, let's just say Kevin Durant, could the Cavs have come back from 3-1 against the Warriors? I don't think so. I think LeBron James obviously is a major factor for why the Cavs won in 16. I think Ty Lue's a good coach. They've choked too, though, with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. I can't rank when you say who are the best coaches in the NBA. Ty Lue's not up there for me because I still need to see it with the Clippers. I agree with you. I know right now on some sites, they are the betting favorites to win or at least represent the Western Conference finals or represent the West in the finals, excuse me. They could do it. I also wouldn't be shocked if we revisit this later down the road after the season ends and they're in the play-in tournament and a team in the play-in tournament for us right now is in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lue kind of proved himself to be a more than capable coach with the team, like the team he had last year, where Kawhi Leonard's not on the floor at all, and you still make this play-in tournament in a season where I don't think people may have expected you to do so. He also had Paul George coming back into his own as well, and I don't know. I still think he's a more than capable coach, and with Kawhi back on the floor this year, this is a contender. Now, I'm not saying they're a powerful contender like some of the next 3, but if they slide into the right spot in the playoffs, they can make a serious run, I think, or at least a run to the Western Conference Finals for what they've never done that before.
Right, and I just think they're very thin as well. I think you saw last year the huge loss in Montrezl Harrell when they let him go to the Lakers. Your center is Ivan Zubac.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Zubac, you got Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, Reggie Jackson,
and for everybody out there, they have John Wall. Yes, wow, they have John Wall. This isn't the John Wall of the Washington Wizards years ago. This is the John Wall that refused to play in Houston because they were so bad. He was coming off injury. He was going through a lot of personal stuff. Mm-hmm. John Wall doesn't make them a contender. He doesn't. Now, I could sit here and eat my words, later down the road. Maybe I will, but I'm not putting too much into the fact they got John Wall. Mitch, what have we seen from John Wall over the past 4 or 5 seasons? Because to me,
a lot of nice suits.
Yeah, very nice.
Sit on a chair.
Him and Anthony Davis must have the same tailor because they are always in street clothes.
I'm gonna stop myself from saying anything else because I don't want to say anything too demeaning. You go ahead, do whatever you want.
Well, no, that's just it. I just think they're extremely thin. I outside of Kawhi and Paul George, Reggie Jackson's capable of going off. We've seen it before. I think he's a very good point guard in the NBA. Obviously, not even near tier 1 or tier 2. I do like Robert Covington a lot. That was a player I wanted the Cavs to go get in years past. I think he's a very good player, very solid player. But just the injury concerns and then just how thin they are talent wise at certain positions. I have them at 4, but like I said, I could see them falling. And for some reason, Mitch, a lot of people have them as the title favorite.
A lot of people have the Clippers as the title favorite.
Well, at least to represent the West in the finals. But there are some sites that even have them tied atop the odds to win the finals.
See, that's interesting because the next three teams I think have like a huge gap from the other teams in the West. Because my number 3 is a team that, proved themselves in that series against the Suns, and I think is going to have maybe arguably the best player in the NBA this year, and that's the Dallas Mavericks. Luka Doncic, we know he's a superstar. He's going to become a super duper star in this season, I think. And even with the loss of Jalen Brunson, you still have a number of capable players on that team. I still like what Rick Carlisle can do as a coach. He's a finals winning head coach. So I think this is going to be a comfortable 3 seed for me, unless there's some major injury to Luka throughout the year and the team just does not gel without him, because I think this is a team that can make a jump, not the jump, a jump for now.
I completely agree. I like the Mavericks a lot. They're my 3 seed. I think Luka is, if he hasn't already taken off, Mitch, I think he has that much more room for improvement to really take off and put himself up in that category when you're talking about the top 5 players in the NBA, to be in the top 5 players in the NBA. I think he's that good. The question, though, is what is the loss of Jalen Brunson going to look like? Because to your point, he was a very, very, very big part of the Mavericks last year, especially in the playoffs. You lose that, you let him go to New York. We'll have to wait and see, but I do have the Mavericks as a 3 seed because I trust Luka, and this is a star-driven league where one player can carry you. And I think as young as he is, I'm pulling it up right now, Luka Doncic is 23. As young as he is at 23, he's capable of putting a team on his back and carrying them as far as he can possibly carry them.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at some of the other potential players that could help Dallas this year. I'm going through the lineup. We got Natilkina, Christian Wood, Pinson in there, Tim Hardaway Jr., Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie. I'm just reading off the roster at this point. Reggie Bullock, Spencer Dinwiddie. That's just something there. I'm just going to turn off that phone call. Number two I have on my list is the reigning NBA Finals winners, and I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors. Golden State proved themselves to be back last year, even without Kevin Durant, that are still capable of winning the championship for good reason. You still have Steph, who's considerably more experienced now at this point, over at least a decade in the league, but he's still got his game. Klay Thompson's got his game. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Draymond here in the next couple of months or so, where it's not a great look. I do find it kind of funny that at the same time, what's his name from the Raiders got more of a punishment allegedly for pushing a guy than a guy did for socking his own teammate in the face, but that's neither here nor there. I don't know. I like the Warriors still, and I think they'll at least be. I personally believe they will be one of the 2 teams that are capable of making these finals, unless some team makes a run.
Yeah, so you and I obviously then are flip-flopped with our 1 and 2 seed in the West, because okay. I have the Denver Nuggets as the 2 seed, and the Warriors is my 1 seed. Why? Because if they stay healthy, they showed you even after having a year or 2 off with injuries, that core is still there. You have the greatest shooter of all time, probably the greatest shooting backcourt of all time with him and Klay Thompson. It's going to be hard to stop that. And now you look at Kuminga, who they had last year. Is James Wiseman going to be healthy this year? The real question to me, though, Mitch, is Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. What's that dynamic like? And Draymond came out and apologized. And for once, I watched the apology and I was kind of like, you know what? I don't know Draymond. He kind of seems sincere. I don't really know what a sincere Draymond Green looks like. And that's why I said he kind of seems sincere. If they get past that, Mitch, I'm going to take the team that just won the finals last year as the best team in the West and put the Nuggets at 2. You have the reigning back-to-back MVP in Jokic. I think he is one of the top 5 players in the NBA. Jamal Murray's back. Okay. This is a guy that tore his ACL. He missed all last year. The wild card for me, though, and obviously I'll let you say who your number 1 team is, but I know now from just process of elimination, if Michael Porter Jr. stays healthy and can take off, this Nuggets team can be the number 1 seed in the West and can finally get over the hump and make it to the finals. But it's, can he stay healthy and what can he do? But I think Jamal Murray being back this year, healthy, we'll have to see what it's like at the beginning of the season. If he's on a restriction with minutes, whatever it is, the Nuggets are a team that I think are a force to be reckoned with.
I agree, and it's that small sample size of Porter Jr. that I've really liked since he's gotten to the NBA. That has allowed me to kind of overlook the injuries and be like, oh, if he can just stay healthy, he can do some great things. You mentioned Jamal Murray coming back. You mentioned Jokic, the two-time reigning league most valuable player. I mean, who would have thought a guy like this, a big man like this, would ever be considered like an MVP in this era again? He's doing it. So now I'm loving what this Denver team can do, and it doesn't necessarily guarantee them to go back deep into the playoffs because they haven't quite gotten it done the last two times. But could this be the year where they kind of usurp Golden State and just make this run to the finals, which I believe would be the first time for the franchise? I don't think they've ever made the NBA finals from what I remember. So this could be the season, and I'd be very interested in seeing that be so. Okay, so now as we have our predictions for the West, and we have our predictions for everybody at this point, as far as your playoff matchups go, I want to start off in the East. My first round would be actually we'd have the same. Well, first of all, play-in tournament. Excuse me, I nearly forgot that we had a whole new system now. The play-in tournament, I believe, would be consisting of, for you, it would be Bulls and the Hawks, and then the other game would be number 9 and 10 Raptors and the Hornets.
Correct. That is what I would have. In terms of who I have winning those two matchups, I do have the Hawks winning over the Bulls and becoming the 7th seed in the East. And then I have the Bulls defeating the Raptors in the 8-9 seed game, you would say, even though I have the Bulls as 7 seed. And Bulls would get the 8th seed and take on the Bucks in the first round.
Okay, so then the Bulls, even though they finished 7th, would become the 8th seed by losing. That's such a okay. So the first round. So for me, it would be the Raptors and the Hawks. Yeah, I feel like the Hawks would take that one and become the 7 over Toronto in that particular game. It's a winner take all one game, so it's kind of whatever. And then you have the Bulls up against the Knicks. I think the Bulls would take that one, and then they would have to play Toronto in that final game. I would say Toronto for my number 8. So we have all the matchups set here. So for the first round series, we have Bulls and no, I don't even have Bulls in mind. I have Raptors. We both have the Hawks at 7. It would for you it would be Bucks versus Bulls, and for me it would be Bucks versus Hawks. I will say I think my first round matchup with that would be harder for Milwaukee, but I think the Bucks would take either one of them.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see how the Bucks would lose to either team, and I kind of agree with you. I do think the Hawks would maybe pose a bigger threat to the Bucks, but if the Bucks are healthy, I like them. I just like that backcourt, like I said. But I don't see anybody who can stop Giannis. There's not many players, if any, in the NBA that can stop him to begin with. It's ultimately what type of defense do you have? What kind of size do you have on the team? There's nobody on either of these teams, I think, for you or I. For me, the Bulls, for you, the Hawks, that could slow them down. But regardless who the Bucks would play out of those two teams, I do have the Bucks,
Okay, then the 2 through 7, we both have Atlanta at number 7. I would have them facing the Sixers. You would have them facing Miami.
Correct, and I would have Miami handling that game easily. I know I say easily, and some people's eyebrows might raise. I just think that Milwaukee is just the overall better team, and I think Spoelstra would know how to game plan. And Jimmy Butler is a guy that will guard the best player on the floor, and I think Jimmy Butler's length and size and athleticism would be enough to disrupt Trae Young in the playoffs and send Atlanta home packing early.
Okay, so this is where our team gets into it. So at 6 we have the Cavaliers.
Mm-hmm.
My number 3 is Boston. Your number 3 is Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Can the Cavaliers beat either of these teams in a 7-game series right now in this season?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I have the Sixers at 3. The Cavs played tough with them last year. Like I said, whether it was Mobley playing and Allen out or Allen playing and Mobley out, and Garland was hobbled at times, and now you add Donovan Mitchell in. If both big men are healthy, you have the tandem down low to handle Embiid. You have the scoring on the outside now where you don't have to rely on Garland or hope one of your other guys on the team catches fire. That I think the Cavs would defeat the Sixers if in that 3 versus 6 matchup. And you have Boston. I think the Cavs can beat Boston too, especially with some of the things they're going through this season. The Cavs beat Boston a couple times last year in the regular season when they were fully healthy, really when they started to peak. I still remember coming home. I think they played them 2 times in 3 days in Cleveland. And the Cavs played them tough both times. I believe came out victorious both times. it's more so who is our three and who's guarding Jason Tatum. I think that's really what it is. And I for your sake, Mitch, I also think the Cavs can knock off the Celtics.
So you're taking Cavs in your series. This is tricky for me because last year Boston got 2 late wins at the end of the season against Cleveland, and I think if you have the advantage of Mitchell in there, then I think the backcourt could be better, and I think that could be harder for Boston to defend. I'll say Cavs in a longer series, maybe 6 games, 7 games, but I could see Cleveland winning that one, so I'll move them to the next round. Yours, for 4 and 5 would be Boston versus Brooklyn, and mine would be Miami versus Brooklyn. That'd be a good one.
It would be. It would be a real good one, and I don't know. Right? What Brooklyn Nets team are we talking about?
Yeah.
We don't know. Mitch, they are the biggest question mark of a team in the NBA season. They really are. I would have to say, going off last year, I'm taking the Celtics, who swept them in a 4-game series after the Nets got into the playoffs, winning the play-in game against the Cavs.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stick to it right now and say I will take the Celtics to knock off the Nets, just because I don't know. Am I going to be shocked if the Nets got in and run the table if the seeds end up this way and they handled the Celtics convincingly? Not one bit. But for the sake of this argument, what I know and all the question marks, I would take the Celtics over the Nets.
You take the Celtics over the Nets. See, I think mine's harder. I think mine between Miami and Brooklyn might be more difficult because you have the two superstars, and after that, Brooklyn doesn't have a lot of depth. And Ben Simmons, I don't know if he'll make as much of a difference against the Heat's scheme. I really hate to knock Brooklyn out of the first round again, but I feel like that might be what has to happen because I think Miami overall would have more in sync within them, and that between the players, the coaching staff, I think they could have a better system and scheme than Brooklyn would. It might just be like playing hero ball, even though Hero's on the Heat. So I'm gonna go Miami in this one, but I really don't like that I did that. And that would lead over to the second round. So then the matchups would be, I believe it would be Bucks versus Cavs in the next one because the Cavs would be the lowest seed.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be Cavs versus Buck. Let me check that just to make sure. But let's just assume for now Bucks versus the Cavs for both of our second round series.
Yeah. And if that is how it plays out, I'm trying to picture the bracket in my head as well. So for the sake of this, let's go. If it just goes by highest versus lowest seed, I would take the Bucks.
No, excuse me. I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm sorry. So
it is.
It looks like it would be the winner of the 1 versus 8 would play the 4 versus 5. So it would be It would be Bucks versus the Heat, or in your case, the Celtics. Bucks versus Celtics.
Yeah. So if that's the way we're going, I'm taking the Bucks over the Celtics, because I told you I think last year the Bucks beat the Celtics in a best of 7 if Middleton's healthy.
We're assuming that to be the case this year too.
Right.
Giannis could get injured for all we know, and then that could be a huge turning point. But as of now, we're just, these are what are these? What is it called? Not tangible predictions, but like tangent. What's that word called? When it's like,
no.
What is it?
No, I don't think it's tangent.
No, the word where it's like you're making these predictions, but it's based on expected things to happen. It doesn't account for other. It doesn't matter. The next second round series would be, I believe, yours would be Cavs versus Heat, and mine would be Cavs versus 76ers.
Yeah, and so for mine over here, having Cavs versus Heat, I'm going to manage expectations here, Mitch. I would take the Heat, just because I think maybe the Cavs are just a little too early. I think they have the roster and build right there. They have the right head coach in place. They have the talent, but I will take the experience with talent over the talent with no experience. I would take Miami, and I honestly think they would probably go 7, but I would take Miami over the Cavs just to manage expectations. I don't want to get too high already. I might be too high already saying the Cavs are going to be in the top 6 when we don't know what they're going to gel like. But ultimately that would leave me having the Bucks versus the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals.
And I would have the Bucks versus the 76ers. 76ers. I feel if against my matchup, I would take Bucks at maximum 5, but yours might be closer, Bucks and Heat.
Yeah, I honestly think that it would make for the best entertainment if it was the two teams. I think that they are evenly matched talent wise, just at different positions. And I would say that's probably going to go 7. I would love to see that matchup. It could be the last year that the Heat may be able to really make a run. As we know, Pat Riley likes to spend and make moves. We mentioned Kyle Lowry being older. I think that could be ultimately what holds the Heat back. And just the overall depth down low for the Heat. I know I said Bam Adebayo is great. I think he's pretty underrated. But in that, I think it would be a 7-game series, and I would take the Bucks over the Miami Heat, and the Bucks would advance the NBA Finals.
So we both have Milwaukee going to the finals. Let me go over to the West, where the play-in matchups would be Timberwolves versus the Lakers, and well, for me at least, and then the Pelicans would play the Blazers. You have Pelicans versus Lakers, and it's Timberwolves versus Blazers.
Yes.
Could I guess your two teams that you would advance out of the play-in?
Yes, sir.
Timberwolves and Pelicans.
You're half correct. I would have the Pelicans beating the Lakers. I would have the Pelicans then slide into the 7th seed, and I would have the Lakers playing the Timberwolves as the 8th seed, and I would have the Lakers beating the Timberwolves to get back into the playoffs as the number 8 seed.
Okay, so your 7 and 8 seeds are true 7 and 8 seeds. So that'll be I'm surprised you don't have the Timberwolves getting past there, but I do have for me Timberwolves versus Lakers. I would actually go Minnesota on that one. So they would get the 7 seed. And then as far as the Pelicans and Blazers go, I would have the Pelicans beating the Blazers, and then the Lakers versus the Pelicans. I think, you know what, even though I kind of crapped on you for that, I think I would go Lakers over New Orleans for number 8, and I think it would have them go as the final seed. So then in the playoffs, we would have you would have Warriors versus the Lakers, and I'd have Nuggets versus the Lakers. I think we're going to both go against the Lakers on this one, right?
Yeah, as much as I don't want to, and as much as I'll be rooting for the Lakers, strictly for LeBron, I will take the Warriors.
Yeah, based on principle, I would do that. Nuggets versus Pelicans for you, and then Warriors versus Timberwolves for me.
And I have the Nuggets beating the Pelicans pretty handedly. I say that, but I wouldn't be shocked if it goes 6. Maybe the Pelicans steal one in Denver. I wouldn't be shocked if they went back to New Orleans and they got 2. I think Denver, though, would make it look a lot more lopsided than it would probably end up being. But I do have Denver, defeating the Pelicans in the first round.
I have Warriors over Minnesota, but I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota stole a game or 2 from a first round matchup with them. Then we have both of us actually have the same 3 versus 6, and for 4 versus 5. 3 versus 6, Mavericks versus the Grizzlies. It's Luka versus Ja.
Mavericks. I'm taking the Mavericks over the Grizzlies, and one has Luka. I think Ja's a very, very good player. He's on his way up to being probably where Luka is right now, but for where we are right now, I would say the Mavericks win that series, and I think that would be a very, very entertaining series.
I agree. And this next one might be the hardest of all the first round ones we've done. Clippers against the Suns, 4 versus 5. This is both of us.
Yeah, and it's tough. This probably is the toughest matchup to pick if this is how it ends up. Because on one hand, you have the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard, who has that experience, multiple-time Finals MVP, 3-time NBA champion. Mm-hmm. You probably would have to lean that way strictly because of the difference maker he is, especially elite defender he is. Is Paul George going to be the Paul George we saw a couple times the past few years where he doesn't show up in the playoffs, or the Paul George that we know is capable of showing up and making shots in big time moments? I just can't get behind the Suns, as much as that kills me to say, because I want to see Chris Paul get one. I would take the Clippers over the Suns.
All right, so that's where I think we split, because I think I would take the Suns over a Clippers in a 7-game playoff series, just based on the experience. But I don't. That would go 7 games, I think. And the next round, you would have the Nuggets up against I would have the Nuggets versus the Suns, which I'll get out of the way right now. I'm taking the Nuggets over what would be considerably, compared to them, ancient Suns. You have Warriors up against the Clippers.
And I'll take the Warriors I'll be nice. I'll say 6, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's 5.
All right, so then you have the Warriors going up against the Mavericks, or I have Warriors against Mavericks. You have Nuggets versus Mavericks. That's tough.
It is. It's very tough. I could see it going either way. I think this is another one that's best of 7. Strictly off the talent throughout a whole and just the talent, where the talent is position wise. Right now, I'm going to tell you I would take the Nuggets.
Yeah.
I want to say Mavericks though. I do, because I think this is giving me 2006, 2007 Cleveland Cavalier vibes where LeBron just carried that team. And I think Luka is capable of doing that again this year and proving, he can do that. So it wouldn't shock me if the Mavericks beat the Nuggets, but sitting here right now, a healthy Jamal Murray, if Michael Porter's healthy with the back-to-back reigning MVP, I would have to take the Nuggets, who would also have home court.
I would hate for us to have the same West Finals, but I feel like your matchup would allow Dallas to sneak into the conference finals more than mine would. So I think I have to take the Warriors, and I don't like it. So I have to go. We have to go with alternating, basically. We took different routes. We got to the same destination, basically.
Yep.
Nuggets and Warriors. As much as I don't want to say it, I think they're gonna make it very, very, very close. But I gotta go with the Warriors over the Nuggets. I think it's gonna go down to Game 7, final seconds. Somebody's gonna make a big shot, and I don't know if it's gonna be anybody on Denver. I can think it's gonna be somebody on Golden State, though.
For the sake of this show, for the sake of us, I'm going to go off the grid and I'm going to take the Nuggets.
All right.
I do think the Warriors are the reigning champions. If they're healthy, I think they're still the team to beat. But for the sake of this, I do trust Jokic, but it all depends on the health of the other players around him, because you don't see teams in the NBA win nowadays when your best player is a post player. But I will take the Denver Nuggets.
All right. So you have Bucks versus Nuggets in the finals. I have Bucks Warriors, which is, I think, is the one that people are really kind of eyeing as like the potential like serious finals matchup. And this one's difficult because I think that the Bucks definitely have the inside game. Golden State has the outside game. The Bucks do have playoff experience, but the Warriors have all the playoff experience they would need, even with some of their younger guys. I think Milwaukee has a good support staff. I think Warriors might be a little bit more fully flourished off the bench. And that would be Mike Budenholzer versus Steve Kerr. And that's a whole other thing. People were like, oh, that's an easy pick. But Mike Budenholzer has one more ring than you and I and many NBA fans do. So he did something right, or at least didn't do enough things wrong, as there were those jokes on the finals run a year or so ago. I think I'm going to go. This is tough. If Giannis can have the finals for the ages, even more so than he did back in 2021, I think I'm going to go with Milwaukee on this one. I think they get back up to finals champions, and I think they are the ones that they're not going to end the Warriors run, but I do think it's going to put like a bit of a dent in what the Warriors have been, because we have about 3, 4, maybe 5 years left of Golden State being a contender before that they blow that whole thing up. Steve Kerr retires, and then we just see them go back to the bottom of the standings.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm taking the Bucks over the Nuggets.
Okay. Now talk to me about why you would take Milwaukee over Denver in that matchup.
First off, I think it would be such an entertaining finals because they would match up so well. I know Giannis isn't a true center, but Giannis is fully capable of going down low and guarding somebody like Joker. Especially, you probably wouldn't see Joker guard Giannis, because I don't know if you can trust Joker out on the perimeter defensively with somebody like Giannis, who has the athleticism to be able to get off the dribble and, drive. And I think that's probably why I don't see anybody on Denver that could really slow down Giannis. I don't know if Giannis, though, is fully capable by himself of slowing down Jokic.
No.
I think Jamal Murray, I'd give the slight advantage to a fully healthy, and he goes back to that 2020 form over Drew Holiday. And then it comes down to who has the best other player. And I would say it's Chris Middleton over Michael Porter Jr.
All right. So we have the Milwaukee Bucks for both of our NBA champions with different finals matchups. those are our standings. So obviously, if you're in the comments on YouTube or if you're, hitting us up on Twitter at Mitch Spinell or at Mitchell Balla, where do you think the standings will go? Who do you think the finals will be? Who do you think the champion will be? Now, before we go, we will go over to our award picks for the upcoming season. We'll start off with the smaller ones, and we'll build our way up. We have the Defensive Player of the Year award, and you stuck with our team. I did not. I'll let you talk about your defensive player in a second. For my defensive player of the year, I actually was a guy that you mentioned during the show, or an underrated guy, Bam Adebayo, who has always been like a rock in Miami's system for the last few seasons. And I think this year he could really do something special for a Heat defense that could end up being toughening themselves up enough to make a considerable playoff run. So I know you have Miami later on in the thing, but I want to let you get to your defensive player of the year.
Yeah, look, I think the Cavs and what their philosophy is and what we've seen with JB Bickerstaff is defense. I think Evan Mobley makes it a lot easier on Jared Allen. Now that could also backfire on him in terms of block shots and defensive presence and everything. But I don't think enough people talk about Jared Allen. I think he's one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. I think he's pretty underrated still in terms of people on the outside that aren't in the Cleveland market or watch the Cavaliers night in, night out. I want to get away from some things that people are going for, and that's why I'm going with Jared Allen. I think he is fully capable of winning Defensive Player of the Year. And if the Cavs are going to improve off last season and they're going to eclipse their over-under in terms of win total this year, it's going to take an effort like that from one of the bigs in Cleveland. I would just have to say I trust Jared Allen a little more given where he's at in his career than I would Evan Mobley. I think Jared Allen showed more last year defensively than Evan Mobley, and I like Jared Allen for Defensive Player of the Year.
I like that. I'm looking over at Adebayo's stats right now, along with averaging a career high last year in points, 19 points. He also had a career high 1.4 steals per game, also had over 10 rebounds. Less on the block side. Last year's he averaged over 1, this 1.8, but that's still pretty high considering everything. Sixth man of the year. I'll get to yours in a second. And I do kind of like where you're going with that, but I thought last year might have been the one to earn it. But I'll let you get to it. Mine is Jordan Poole, who got the huge extension from Golden State, who got punched in the face by Draymond Green a week or so ago. I like what he did last year, and I think he could really add on to what was a great campaign in the playoffs for him to add on to it in a full season. And now we could see him not be like the new Draymond, because Draymond's Draymond, but Draymond Green kind of came on as that guy who not everyone thought would be this amazing thing talent-wise, and ended up becoming a very solid I hate to call Draymond a role player, but he's not exactly like the mainstay guy. He's a very amazing part of a machine, and Jordan Poole can kind of do the same on a younger scale.
I like that pick a lot. I tend to think that is who probably is the favorite. And to your point, Mitch, with who I'm taking here, last year was probably his last year, but I'm going to remain hopeful because I've been a stan of this man, no matter how bad we were for the years that we were pretty bad. Kevin Love, he showed last year how much more he was bought in when the team was winning, when he bought into what JB Bickerstaff wanted him to do. People forget what type of player Kevin Love is still, I think. And yes, he's getting up there in age. And last year, like you said, may have been his best shot at it. And they gave it to Tyler Hero. I'm just trying to be optimistic and give us another reason as Cavs fans to hold out hope for why we can get deeper than what I'm predicting us to. And that's why I'm taking Kevin Love as sixth man of the year. I think the role suits him perfectly given his age. He can knock down from outside. He still has post moves. Give me Kevin Love.
You know what's amazing is that I was looking over his numbers from last season, and I thought they would be like a big jump from the years he had prior. 13.6 points per game. He had 7.2 rebounds, 2.2 assists, which do pale in comparison to his 2020 era, where it was around 17 points, 10 rebounds. But with the bottoming out that he had in 2020-21, where it was just 12 points in 25 games, he's firing the ball at teammates, getting frustrated on the floor. I do like where he got to last year, where it looked like he cared again and was having fun. And I wish he'd gotten the award, but Tyler Hero was balling out that year.
Yeah.
So yeah, and again, these awards are very tricky. Like for example, the comeback player of the year, because anybody could win comeback player of the year. It feels like if you didn't have this amazing campaign, Jamal Murray could win it if he comes back from this ACL injury. For me, this is tough. I think I want to say I had Anthony Edwards on mine because Anthony Edwards I think can be a very good player, and I think he can be a guy that does some very good things for Minnesota, who was already coming up last year.
I like the pick. I do. My pick, obviously, you can see it now as I've entered it on the spreadsheet that we have access to. I'm just going to take one of the best players in the NBA who missed all last year. I was thinking Jamal Murray. The reason I went away from Jamal Murray was the Nuggets were already so good last year, even still without him, that you're going to see the Clippers take that next step. And it's because Kawhi Leonard's back. It's because the leader of that team's back. It's because one of the best defensive players in the NBA is back. And just the overall level of his play is so much better than some of these other candidates, is why I have to go Kawhi Leonard for comeback player of the year.
Okay, so all right, this is where I got confused. I was thinking of most improved player. Anthony Edwards is still my most improved. I think I'll go with see, I was thinking between Kawhi and Zion, but Zion played a lot last year. I think I'm gonna go with Jamal Murray just for principle, because you're coming back from basically no games. Coach of the year, or sorry, rookie of the year. Guys who have never played on the floor before. I'm going with Paolo Banchero, the top pick from the Orlando Magic, because that team's not going to have a lot of stuff going for it. Otherwise, Paolo could put up insane video game numbers, and it'll result in like 30 victories basically for Orlando, 35 wins. I mean, just get a little something going in Orlando, and not make them feel like they're just in hopeless despair.
Yeah, and I don't want to criticize your pick. I think that's the safest pick, because I think Banchero has the potential to really improve the Orlando Magic. I'm going off the board though with one of the teams that I think really nobody talks about, and I have them right on the outskirts of making the play-in tournament in the East, and it's the Detroit Pistons. And so I'm going Jaden Ivey. And he might not be the flashiest rookie. He might not score all the points, but I think you're going to see Cade Cunningham take off. And it's going to be because of the ball handling and the play of Jaden Ivey. I think that when it's all said and done, Detroit is going to have a better season than Orlando. And I think Jaden Ivey is going to be that big of a difference maker for the Pistons, to a point where it's going to cause the Cavaliers fits as a team in the Central Division. It's going to cause the Cavs fits for a few years, and getting Donovan Mitchell is going to help us outlast that. I just really like Jaden Ivey. And like I said, I loved him at Purdue. And so that's why I have to go with him here.
Yeah. Now, as for coach of the year, I had to make a last minute change, because initially I said Chris Finch for the Timberwolves, but I only had Minnesota in the play-in, and I think he really did his best stuff last season. This year, I'm going to go as the same as you. I'm going to go with Jason Kidd for the Dallas Mavericks because of what Dallas could do, and maybe making that jump to a very serious West contender, and kind of proving that he can be a viable NBA head coach. Even when he was in Brooklyn for that short stint, and even in Milwaukee, I thought this guy can do some good things. Just teams never quite came together. But I think this team in Dallas is set to do something special.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, most of the time, coach of the year gets rewarded the team that made the biggest jump. And I think you and I are both in the same, boat here, thinking that Dallas can make the biggest jump. And that's why I think it has to be Jason Kidd that ultimately gets coach of the year.
I like it. So we'll go over to the most valuable player now, and I'm going to let you go to yours first, because I already kind of showed my hand on my previous one, and it might have a connection to Kidd. Tell me about your most valuable player prediction.
It's Giannis, Mitch. I think Giannis is the best player in all of basketball right now. That's no slight at some of these other greats we have right now. I think the most valuable player, though, loses some meaning in different sports. We've seen it before. To me, I always take the most value. If you take that player away from the team, what would happen? Right? Not the highest score, not who's the flashiest dunker, who has the highlight reels. If you took Giannis off the Milwaukee Bucks, they're a lottery team. They are. I don't think Chris Middleton is nearly as good as he has played in years past. He's definitely not an all-star. Giannis makes everybody else around him. I think them getting the 1 seed in the East is such a big thing for them and for him in terms of winning the MVP that I'm taking Giannis. For years, I argued, Mitch, that even when his numbers weren't there, LeBron James was still the most valuable player because look what happened to the teams when he left. To me, that's value. The Cavs became one of the worst teams in the NBA after going to 4 straight finals when he left. The Lakers were abysmal the year he got hurt his first year in LA. And so my whole thing is if Giannis did get hurt, Milwaukee would be a very bad team. And if you took him away, I think they're a very bad team. And so that to me says more value. And I do also think he is the best player in all of basketball.
I like that. I like that. And I'm going to go with Luka Doncic for mine. I think this is the year where he really makes the jump to, like I said, super duper star. And, he's going to lead that Dallas team. He's going to will them to a big run. Hopefully, for his sake, he gets to the finals for the first time so he can showcase what he can do. And he might become he's already an international superstar because he'd been playing overseas for years. And now he's just kind of getting over in the NBA. But this is the one where I think he becomes like a global sort of icon if he's not already. And I just found out there's no NBA comeback player of the year. It's called the most improved player. I'm going to take back what I said about Jamal Murray. I was praising him throughout our Denver segment. I'm going with Michael Porter Jr. just a wild card pick. I think I got confused throughout this whole thing. And I'm hopeful that you weren't confused in watching our predictions and our preview of the 2022-23 NBA season. We thank you so much for watching, and we shall see where this season goes. We're obviously Cleveland fans, so obviously we hope that the Cavs do some good things, but we also hope for many other teams' sake besides the Warriors that they are able to do some amazing things for this upcoming year. Now, as of course, you can also follow us on all of our podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. You can also hit us up here on YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell. BigTimeSportsOhio.com. You also have at BTS Ohio on Twitter and on Facebook and Instagram at Mitch Spinell, at Mitchell Bala. And Mitch, do you have any parting words as we depart from or go into this new NBA season?
I'm excited. I'm very excited. Basketball's back. I'm excited for the Cavs, but I have a question, and it's for you. I'm putting you on the spot.
Sure.
Over under 47.5 wins for the Cleveland Cavaliers in the 22-23 NBA season.
I'm going over because I actually have them at 48 this year.
Okay.
I think it's a very safe bet for them. If the wheels don't go off the rails.
Right. And for everybody out there, don't get nervous if they start off slow. It's going to take some time for them to gel. You saw it before with LeBron. No, I'm not comparing Donovan Mitchell to LeBron. You've seen it before. All these other teams that get these pieces. It takes time to gel. Don't worry. If it's the same thing in March, then yes, it's probably time to worry. But I'm also taking the over. But man, oh man, I'm excited for basketball to be back. I'm excited for the Cavs to be good again. NBA is fun. There's always so much drama, so many storylines, and it won't be long before we're talking about drama in the NBA, and it very may well come from the Brooklyn Nets.
I'll be keeping my eye on NBA Twitter for the next few months, and I hope you'll be keeping an eye on more specials like this and regular episodes here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show.